Welcome to our Wednesday devotional thought. I'm thankful that you share this time with me each week and trust others will also. I don't want to sound like a broken record, and sometimes I get on the same theme time after time. But I've just read again this week the passage from Habakkuk chapter 3, where Habakkuk listed a number of things that could go wrong and perhaps were going to go wrong. He was a prophet, you remember. And yet he said in Habakkuk chapter 3, verse 17, he said, I will rejoice. Here's what he said. Listen to this in Habakkuk 3, verse 17. He said, although the fig tree shall not blossom, neither shall fruit be in the vines, the labor of the olive shall fall, and fields shall yield no meat. The flock shall be cut off from the fold, and there shall be no herds in the stall. This list included all kinds of things that could go wrong, all kinds of things that probably were going to go wrong in his nation. And yet he said, with all that, even through all that, verse 18 of Habakkuk 3 says, yet I will rejoice in the Lord. I will joy in the God of my salvation. Even in the hard times, he had determined to rejoice. I want to encourage that in our lives today. You say, well, Pastor, you've encouraged that. And I have, and I shall continue to, God willing. But here's what's on my mind. 1 week from today, the presidential election will have taken place. I'm not sure whether we'll know the results at that time or not. According to many who are taking polls, they know what the results are going to be. I don't. But I know this. I've been voting since the early 1970s. If my figures are right, I've voted in 12 presidential elections in my lifetime. And I don't believe I've ever known of or remember of any election, presidential election, where there was such a contentious spirit, so much hatred, so many accusations going around. I think President Trump has been blamed for everything from the COVID crisis to who left the lights on at the church building. He seems like he's being accused of everything. But the fact is, within a week, we'll have done our part. I hope you will. I hope you will have voted. I plan to vote. So we'll have done our part, and then we see the results. Now, how will we as Christians respond if the election does not go the way we think it should? I mentioned in a message recently that there are two very strongly opposed opinions of each other in the election to come. We have some that are totally for the protection of life, and some that are against the protection of unborn life, even up to the time when they're born and even sometimes afterwards. We have conflicting opinions regarding many things that are biblical issues in the upcoming election. These things are at stake. But we've heard that if it doesn't go one way, there'll be riots in the street. So my question really is, how are we, as men and women who claim to be Christians, who claim to love the God, who claim to have the peace of God that passeth all understanding in our hearts, in our lives, how are we going to respond? I believe Habakkuk has given us the answer. He had decided that no matter what came into his life or into his country, he said, I will rejoice. Are we at that level of Christian maturity in our lives? Are you? Am I? Are we going to be able to rejoice if the elections go in a direction that we feel is completely opposed to the Bible, contrary to the Bible? If those who don't believe the Bible gain power, will we still be able to rejoice? That reminds you of two or three things. Number one, God is all-powerful and all-knowing. Whatever takes place on Tuesday will not surprise him. He knows. He knows whether power or persecution is what we as Christians need. Since we know he knows that, we can trust him. and not be afraid. He is the one that has said all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to his purpose. He is the one that's given us the power to fulfill his commission to us. We can trust him and not be afraid. We also have his word on which we can depend. His promises never fail. His word is always true. He's promised that there would be some pretty scary times as we approach the end times, as we approach the judgments of the nations. None of the coming events will surprise him, and none of them should surprise us. And then we have the power to rejoice as Habakkuk did. We should not wait until the election is over to make this decision. We should determine today, we should determine this week in our hearts that no matter what happens, we trust the Lord and will trust him with the results of the upcoming election. As Habakkuk said, I will rejoice. Have you and I reached that level of Christian maturity yet? I trust we have. Have a blessed day.